Ooh. Ooh.
First thing you do when you're live.
Yep.
I don't know what happened
Always the
there.
entertainer.
Hello, everyone. We are live. I don't know what happened there. Technical difficulties. I'm your host, Dan, for the Survivor Sim podcast, and I'm here with two guests. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Rachel. I've been a Survivor fan for, I don't know, like 13, 14 years, and met Xander pretty recently, and this is my husband.
I'm Luke. I got into Survivor when I got married to Rachel. I used to laugh at Survivor and not really watch it beforehand. And I still do laugh at it sometimes. But I'm much more of a fan than I used to be, thanks to Rachel. She started me on Cagayan back in the day, which is the perfect way to start someone off.
Yeah.
And since then, my appreciation for Survivor has only grown. I may out appreciate Rachel.
Yeah, he's overtaken me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you got to my next question. I was going to ask how do you guys get into Survivor, but I guess you already did that one. So yeah, let's just start talking about this episode. How did you guys feel watching it? Any reactions or old reactions?
Lots of reactions from me. I felt like there were a lot of big Survivor mistakes, like classic mistakes this episode,
Yes.
which I'm happy to talk about as we go.
Oh, we will.
When Rachel and I watch Survivor, we're quite analytical about it. We look for lessons that can be learned from each episode, and what to do, what not to do. They should have done this and that.
Very much the armchair critics, like, they should have done that.
Yeah,
from the comfort of our couches with our dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I say let's start breaking it down. So to start this episode off, do you guys... Okay, to start off, on Asana, Mark and Sam are not hiding their relationship or closeness at all. What do you guys think about that?
It's just a big target. I think if I were playing with them, it wouldn't bother me because I'm like, oh, great, easy shield, right? Because that's like the biggest target come tribe swap or come merge. But for those people playing, I think some of them are fairly new and they see that closeness and they think that's just too threatening. I can't get in enough with that alliance.
Yeah, there's definitely this it's only season 2 of Australian Survivor, so a lot of the players are sort of green in that, they're sort of seeing things on a surface level. So they're not looking, we can use a couple as a shield, or if we get them on our side, there's 2 votes, then we can use them kind of thing. It's just like, big threat, must get rid of.
Yeah, and I think it's the Boston Rob and Amber effect of we've seen couples get away with it and go too deep in the game and become too dangerous. And so now it's like, there's a couple, destroy it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's also interesting because with Times vs. Rebels, as I'm assuming you guys have seen, there were also couples on that season. So I don't know what people are doing, but I mean, it's great TV either way. I think Oh, you were saying? My bad.
I was just laughing.
Oh, yeah, you're good. All right, so Tessa and Tara have a bit of a rivalry going on here on a Summertown. So, do we blame Tessa? Do we blame Tara? Who's at fault here?
I think you've got to remember that there is a little bit of merit to it because they didn't come to that vote where she flipped until the second vote out of the game. So it was 6 days. You've spent a week together. Although you haven't actually voted to solidify that alliance, I can imagine that Tessa might have felt like there was a social connection there that was betrayed. But I can also I can also see myself in Tessa's shoes, trying my best to throw Tara under the bus and accentuate how much of a flip it was because it would feel like maybe my only pitch.
Yes, I agree. I think another thing to talk about with the whole Tara-Tessa situation is, did you guys see their confessionals at the voting parchment? Where they're That was hilarious when Tessa was like, "You flipped," and then Tara's like, "I didn't flip." Like, perfect television, perfect storyline. Like, that was amazing. I think another thing. I think another thing to talk about for Asuna is what is happening with Jackie and Henry, because these two are also a power couple, or that's what the edit's trying to show us. And they have Ted, who is kind of like a little rat for them, saying, "Oh, by the way, Mark went after you guys. Like, he's following you from Sam." I don't like. What do we think about that?
Well, they've really finagled it in their favour, to be fair. And I think, obviously you've got Mark and Sam being this big couple, obvious couple. It allows other things to be hidden. Mark and Sam are a bit of a smokescreen, a bit like Q was in the most recent American Survivor, where they're the smokescreen. Everyone looks at them, but you can do other things while this big obvious couple is there. So they've hidden it well, but not that it would be all that difficult to hide necessarily.
Yeah, I'd be so curious to see, like, what has made them feel so loyal and so bonded to each other, because it doesn't seem romantic or anything. Like, I feel like they've probably just had some sort of really good, like, deep chat or something. I don't know.
What do we think about the Misfits Alliance? So on some account, that's essentially everyone minus AK, Tessa, Kate, and Ziggy. What do
I thought it was quite interesting. It was quite interesting.
Sorry, just cutting out again.
It's all good. It's all good. I thought it was interesting because, like, obviously they're tight, but they were making very basic errors. In the way that they treat Tarzan was just like, yelling at him and stuff like this. And like, yes, you're living in the same place and we're all hungry and whatever, but like it makes things difficult. It got to the point where Tarzan is saying, all you have to do is treat me nicely and I'll be loyal to you. And so, like, they all obviously get along kind of on a surface level, but they're not all savvy game players, and it's sort of just like, we'll vote that person off because they don't mesh. Not really using people for all that they bring to the table.
I've always loved a Misfits Alliance. I always love, that the outcasts coming together. It doesn't really feel like much of one of those in this case. I feel like Tessa said it much more aptly. It's an alliance of convenience. Like, I see it holding together for, I don't even know if it'll hold together one more vote. I think AK is just so, like, champing at the bit for another big move. So I don't know.
What do we think about Tarzan and Tessa's relationship, with Tarzan saying to Tessa, "Oh yeah, I'll help look for an idol for you"?
Well, I mean, so a lot of people overlook the social element of the game. And if you look at the most recent season of American Survivor with Kenzie, she's sort of shown to a lot of people that the social game often outranks the strategic game and whatever. And so you've got people who are they're neglecting that social side of the game. And I think Tarzan, he'll if people show him an ounce of friendliness, he'll go with whatever they say. And Tessa shows him that friendliness, and he's loyal to that. It's all because of neglect from the Misfits, really.
Yeah, I'm loving this connection between Tessa and Tarzan, because I think that it's the kind of one forged in fire that, like, is going to last if people let them stick around. And as just two people on the bottom, I don't know if they make enough of a threat that another easy vote is going to go through on them. So it actually sets them up quite nicely. I think maybe they should have voted Tessa out instead of Kate, but yeah.
What do you guys think about relationships and friendships? Like, what are the two? Like, why do people see them different on the island?
Well, I mean, if you're going to make big strategic moves, you've got to have good, strong friendships and relationships. Good friendships generally, you see their perspective on life, on everything. And so if you can be good friends with someone in the game, you'll probably have a good idea of where their head's at. And, yes, it's difficult. Like I was saying before, you've got hunger and the elements and whatever you've got to deal with. But, you've got to make these friendships and relationships with people, even the ones on the outside, like a Tarzan or a Tessa, because they might just come in handy later, but you can be arrogant.
Was your question more about like romantic versus platonic alliances?
Yeah, so in the game, when people are like, oh, they're a duo, for example, how do people, because you know how people see it differently? I just wanted to know what your guys' perspective on that was.
Yeah, look, I think that romantic ones are much less likely to cross each other just because I think there'd be so much pressure from the Australian public. If you're a guy and you give a woman some sort of inclination that you're romantically interested in them and then cut them in Survivor, I think that's so much less forgivable. Which is, I think that's part of why it sticks together so much better and part of why it's so much more threatening from an outlooker's perspective.
And as well, a lot of blokes, they feel towards their missus that, you sort of got to throw yourself on the sword for them and put yourself in harm's way for them. So, obviously Mark and Sam, I feel like Mark would do whatever Sam says, even to the point where he would blow up his game and get voted off, to help her. So a romantic, you're not going to see that often in just a friendship kind of relationship, because, with a friendship, you can put a friendship aside to focus on the game, whereas a romantic one, it's like, after the game, we might, have babies or whatever. So,
But it is interesting, though, because we have seen those friendships that last the full 36 or whatever, how many days,
whatever,
50 days, Survivor, if they do last that long through all those votes and show that loyalty to each other, sometimes they are willing to just sacrifice everything.
Sometimes. It's a lot more rare.
But sometimes,
Yeah, it's a lot easier to sacrifice yourself for a romantic relationship rather than a friendship.
Yeah. Especially if you're going to marry them and get the money anyway.
Oh, God. Yes. Oh, my God. I need to know, what do you guys think about Tarzan and Yoki's, I guess, rivalry? What do you want to call it? Whatever. I don't know. How do we feel about that?
That was another one of those things that I just felt like was a classic mistake, because Tarzan said in his confessional, Lockie is so liked. Everyone's just doing what Lockie says. So he's identifying that Lockie is someone on the tribe with the most social capital and the most vote sway, because he's so useful in challenges, right? And then he's annoyed by it, so he just commits he basically makes it oh, it's me versus him. And by putting him versus Lockie on the chopping block, who's going to win? It's going to be Lockie for sure, Yeah,
you can definitely, it looks to me like a classic case of tunnel vision, where, Tarzan has just seen Lockie as the threat, the problem, and he's just focusing on him, not looking really at any other players, not really caring for any of them. It's just Lockie is my threat, is my target, is whatever, my problem. Tunnel vision, it can happen, and it's definitely happened to Tarzan here, to his detriment, because he seems like a very nice guy. If he actually had one-on-one chats with everyone else, it'd be he'd probably be okay.
You really don't want to go head towards merge with a lot of huge moves under your belt, and by putting out names and putting yourself in danger, you're building that target, and it's going to snowball and snowball and snowball, and by the time you get to merge, it's sorry, you're one of the first boots here. So I my strategy in his shoes would be bite your tongue and even maybe try and set some other people against each other,
Also, Rachel, you said there were other mistakes made this episode. Would you like to talk about any of those?
We've kind of covered a lot of the ones I was thinking, Mark and Sam, Tarzan and Lockie. One I was talking to Luke about just earlier was, I think that Tessa a little bit has the blinders on in terms of what her pitch is to the Misfit Alliance. I think that she might have had more success pitching AK more than pitching Tara, because there's a lot of mistrust of AK, and honestly, I can see why. Like, she could theorize, okay, I'm gone next, then AK is going to scoop up, this person, this person, this person, this person, and he's going to boot out Lockie. And then you guys will have no big guys on the tribe, and we're just going to fall like pins. Like there's a lot of fear she could sow around such a chaotic player. Especially, it was interesting, she was talking to Jared and she was saying, like, she picked up on, oh, I know you want to play with level-headed people. It just didn't make sense to me that she was then trying to pitch, hey, Jared, come into this alliance with me and AK, the chaotic strategic guy. It's like, maybe just like, you might have more success pulling Jared in against a chaotic player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you got to try and work out what's in people's best interests.
Yeah.
And as well, was it Kate and AK, I think, are having a conversation, and it's sort of like, hey, what about this AK? And he goes, oh, yeah. I mean, that's ammunition that you can use later. AK has told you, oh, I agree to this plan or this thing in future. Well, you can go and tell other people, hey, AK wants to do this later. Or even if he didn't say it, you can just say that he did, because he's that kind of player where it's plausible that he could have said this or that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an easy person to make up lies about, because it's plausible he could do many things.
I do think, though, we should talk about Tessa's pitch to Jared. With Tessa's pitch to Jared, for me personally, I agree. What is that pitch? It's a good pitch on paper, but when you're trying to, talk to someone like AK as well, it doesn't really work. But I do think AK and Tessa did have the right read on wanting to pick Jared to pull in out of the Misfits. I think he was probably one of the more yikey people that want to work with them, because, first of all, AK played an idol on Jared. So, that's trust. Yeah, it was kind of random, and he wasn't really notified. As we saw, at the start of this episode, he's like, "Why did he play an idol on me? I don't really know why, but okay." And then I think another thing is for Tessa, look, I don't blame Tessa too much. I think the problem is she did see, rightfully so, out of the outsiders, she was probably the next to go, and I think she was probably going home, right? If it wasn't for Tarzan's vote. And if we look at the votes, it was 5-4 to 2. 5-4 to 2. And Tarzan was the one person who was the deciding vote between the two of them. So, I don't know. It worked. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, she formed a better social connection with Tarzan. Yeah, I was wondering why Kate left, because I would have thought they'd want Tessa out more. That actually brings me to another thing that I sort of clocked as a bit of a classic mistake, was Kate's pitch to AK. What did you think about that, Xander?
What did I think about that? Well, first of all, apparently she hadn't spoken to him for multiple days. Where's your social game? But whatever.
Yes, neglect.
We're not on the island, right? So we don't know what they're talking about or how close they're talking. But also, I don't get it. Here's the thing. I think logically it makes sense from AK's perspective. I think another thing to talk about, I do think for AK it would make sense for him to fit, whether it's now or next round. Because, you're right. AK has already ruined his reputation. AK has already made himself sketchy as, but I don't know. It probably, Kate was, I think her pick was good. I think the problem was she was coming across really strong. If you go from kind of, I don't want to say ghosting, but pushing someone away and then bringing them in, that's going to rub him the wrong way.
Yeah, and to me, it came across a little bit almost patronizing, because she said, this is your best move. I don't know what you're going to do, but this is your best move. And it was I see my perception of AK as someone who is very intelligent and knows it. There's a little bit of an ego to it. And I'm sure that it was only escalated by the fact that he actually managed to get on Survivor. Like, if I got on Survivor based on like them thinking I was a big strategic threat, I'd be like, oh, great, let's go. Let me use my brains. And so for someone to come up and be like, hey, I don't know if you've realized, but you should be doing this. I just don't see him going, you know what? I'm going to go along with that. Like, I think that he'd be much more inclined to do something if he felt like it was his move. And if he was moving along with people who he knew valued him and respected him. So yeah, it's just a bit, I don't know if that's going to work. That was my feeling when I was watching it.
Yeah, that's bang on. I can't add to that. Rachel's analysis is great there.
I think she started off strong. Like, when she pulled him aside and was like, you know what you're doing. Like, I think at that point she was trying to have an open communication with him, but obviously that just like backfired horribly. Yeah, I don't know. I think I can't fault Kate too much for her going home. I mean, at the end of the day, she was just trying to work with whatever she had.
Yeah, it always makes it seem like, oh, of course they went home, but usually behind the scenes it's like, no, they actually could have been a great player. They just didn't get the chance. So it's always hard to start.
And you know, as well, a lot of that misfit alliance is on the younger side of things, and it can be hard to integrate, you know, with that age gap and things like that. So, you know, sometimes there's sort of that luck of the draw where who's on your tribe and are they, you know, can you connect with them? But you know, they already had, 5-6 days or whatever already. So, you know, a lot of the mistakes we see on the television, there's probably a multitude of mistakes and social faux pas and all these kind of things earlier, you know, that led to this point.
Yeah, it was interesting to see. Like, there weren't very many people, it seemed, that were inclined to vote with Tessa due to social connection or to vote with Kate due to social connection. Like, they very much had to pitch, this is the strategic way forward. So it would be interesting to see what it was like on that beach.
I also want to talk about the fact that, like, Ziggy, who was in Adam's Alliance, is not in the Misfits, and she's just not mentioned at all as a target. So, like, where'd she go? That's Nicola. They call her Ziggy. Where did she go? Like, genuinely, I don't understand.
Well, I mean, you know, sometimes, like, you just don't show up on anyone's radar because, you know, the votes often are, you know, you've got the social aspect of it. Are we getting along socially? But it's also like what does each person on the tribe offer me? And you often, you know, a vote should be, you know, voting off the people who don't offer you a lot or sort of contrary to what your game wants to be. And Ziggy's probably just not really. She's not offensive to anyone. She's not really in the way. She's a number, you know. It's just sort of, yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, because Tessa was like, okay, it's going to be me, Kate, or Tarzan tonight. Yeah, there's no mention of Ziggy.
Also, do we want to talk about Jericho and Nuke? What do we think about their snuggling in the shelter? Because I love it.
Well, speaking about romantic alliances.
Well, yeah, I mean, I relate to Luke on a lot of ways. Obviously, he has my name, so that helps. But like, he's a larrikin, and I love that. But you know, obviously they've really, you know, become close friends. It's, you know, and you know, you're dealing with the rain and the wind and all these horrible conditions. Like, you're going to forge some really strong friendships in there. And you know, obviously, you know, and Luke mentioned that he didn't want to cuddle with any of the ladies because his wife was watching. So, you know, so I mean, who does that leave? It leaves me with Jericho. And
you need some warmth. And what better little spoon, like the height disparity between those two boys.
Yes. Oh my god. So, Rachel, you said it's been how many years since you watched this? Like,
I watched this one when it came out this season. So it 7 years?
Yeah, I think around 7 years. Because I was just wondering if you guys had like any predictions or if you remember any of it. But...
I remember a few things, but I don't remember exact boot orders. It's been that long.
Are we allowed to spoil things for the viewers? Are we assuming that they've watched this?
We'll put a spoiler warning now. So
Spoiler.
But yeah, no. Yeah, you can say whatever.
I don't have much memory of this season, apart from I remember Luke becomes too obvious of a social threat.
And strategic threat. He was doing a lot strategically.
And I remember Jericho had a really effective cookie alliance. So I was really happy to see that in like the next time on Survivor, Jericho finally gets those iconic. Yeah, I don't remember much else, to be honest.
I mean, there's a few players that we see again. We see Tarzan and we see Mark and Sam. Obviously, Luke plays again. Henry plays again. Was it Peter that down there? He plays again. There's a few players that play again. Oh, and AK, of course, and Lockie.
Yeah.
And then Lockie became a Bachelor. He was on The Bachelor as well.
Yeah, he was on The Bachelor.
I never watched it. It's not my type of thing, but I remember seeing that.
I was told it was a good season, so if you ever want to watch The Bachelor, I recommend.
We'll watch it and we'll be fully expecting him to be voting girls out instead.
I just real quick before we go, who would you guys work with if you were out there? Who would you not work with?
Well, okay, which we'll start with Asanga.
Yeah.
Yeah, pick whoever.
Well, okay, for me personally, I mean, Luke, I love him. He would be so much fun to work with, just because he's a larrikin, he's loud, he's fun, and he would be a perfect shield socially.
Yeah, you'd be right in there with Luke and Jericho. Yeah,
that'd be a really fun. I mean, it might become a bit too obvious. It's like a triple threat kind of thing. Mark sort of comes across like, obviously he's very romantically interested, but he's also comes across kind of a serious guy. So that would sort of like, it would be interesting. I wouldn't not get along with him, but he would be down on the pecking order because I would be trying to have fun.
The way to Luke's hard is to laugh at his jokes. And
But I look at someone like Kent as well, and he's that older generation, they tend to be quite loyal. And so if you can get alongside that older generation, you'll have someone you can take to the end as well. Kent doesn't at least come across in the edit someone who's lighting the world on fire socially or strategically or anything like that. So you get alongside that sort of older generation, a very loyal player. That's someone you can take all the way to the end.
I think my pick for that tribe as the person I would, the person I would most want to align with would be Jackie. She comes across to me as a very loyal player and very level-headed, like reliable kind of player, which is really valuable. But I'd also want to keep Sam and Mark around, I think.
Yeah.
Samantha?
Actually, before, not to cut you off, but before that actually gave me a new question. Before we talk about that stuff and with Summertel, what do we think about Henry and Jackie wanting to target Mark and Sam, people who want to work with them? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think going through Survivor, you need as many people who are like you as possible. If you think that you're a physical threat, you need to surround yourself with big, meaty men. You need as many of those coming into Merge as possible, so that if someone starts throwing out, hey, let's knock out the physical threats, then you have the biggest chance of that getting back to you. And you also have this big, meaty shield around you. Versus, I think that would be useful for you.
Thank you.
I think for me, it would be like, okay, who around here can be perceived as social or strategic, or even just a big threat in general. A romantic alliance is going to be a big threat. So it's like, let me try and bring along the threats as long as I think I can manage them come Merge, as long as I think there's enough of an exit strategy with those shields. Yeah, I don't think it's the right move. I think they should stick with them.
It's that early Australian Survivor naivety about the game.
Yeah, and I think as well as by guiding the vote in the early game, if you end up on a tribe swap come the next few votes, you're going to have more enemies than you otherwise would.
I think that's a good point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, well, back to what you guys were saying about your picks. Go on.
Right, so we've done the first tribe. Let's jump to Summer Tower. So, I mean, Kent and Tarzan, sort of, that similar older generation, loyal as hell. Tarzan, someone you want to get alongside. Now, the fact that I am younger would probably chuck me somewhere in the Misfits Alliance. So you would want to, obviously keep cool with them. So Tarzan would be someone you would talk to a little bit more secretly, because I don't think the Misfits, if they see you talking with someone like Tarzan, they go, "Ooh, what you doing?" Whatever. So try and keep Tarzan around as a friend. I would want to get rid of AK probably. This strategic mastermind is just not helpful for someone like myself. And when you've got Tessa and Kate, these are people on the bottom. They'll grab to any plan. So, I mean, there's a few options. And look, Lockie would definitely be someone. I mean, he plays. I believe he plays a bit of soccer, and I like a bit of soccer too. So we'd get along on sort of a lot of base level things. To be fair, I could probably get along with a lot of people on the tribe. It's just a case of who offers what strategy wise.
Yeah, and trying to stick in that majority. Yeah.
Yeah, and someone like AK, he'll be a problem.
Yeah. He'd explode your game.
Yeah.
I personally, I think that the person I would most want to work with would be Jared. I think that he comes across to me as someone who is friendly, enthusiastic about the game, but not as far as I can tell, not super socially connected and not super strategically minded. He likes predictability. And if I can have predictability in my alliance, that's really useful, because then I know, okay, you're probably coming for me here, so I'll come for you here, But I think for me personally, I think the biggest threat to my game at the start of the game is going to be people who are challenge threat. What's challenge strength. They're just gonna oh, Rachel, she has bad cardio, goodbye, right? So I think that it would be really integral to my game to make a close connection with Lockie, because he is the biggest guy, biggest social capital, like I said. I think that publicly I would want my alliances to be with the majority girls, so that I just look like one of the girls, but I'd like to have those secret tight bonds with Jared and Lockie.
What about Tarzan?
Oh yeah, Tarzan too, but it's just hard because you don't want to
be visible.
Yeah, it would be a secret bond for sure, because again, you just got to go with the majority.
Yes, I think with Tarzan, all you have to do is treat him nice, show him friendliness, and he'll because everyone else isn't.
Yeah.
Oh, you go.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, I do like to have up my sleeve a little, if I felt like my name was in jeopardy, then I could be like, "Hey, Lockie, Tarzan's coming for you. Hey, Tarzan, Lockie's coming for you," and make sure those are on the block instead of me. So that would be nice to keep around. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming, guys. And if anyone wants to continue podcasting in the future, just hit me up, guys, because Gladly will have both of you back. And thank you for watching, everyone.